Good evening, and welcome to Soluble, America's Political Central. Tonight, we're going to discuss misinformation and fear, which is one of the pivotal plays that the Republicans like to pull out of the playbook around this time of the year. You know, we have less than 50 days before the election. So, you know, it's real critical that you pay attention, stay informed as to what's going on out here in politics when it comes to making an informed decision. So here we are, you know, as I said, less than 50 something, less than 50 something odd days out from the midterms on November the 8th. I mean, you see it all in the advertising all over TV, with the Republican advertising. As I said, misinformation and fear is what they like to use at this time of the year when it comes to right before the midterm elections. Now, as I've told you, if you've followed this podcast, they hardly ever, if at any time at all, challenge the Republicans, if you will, excuse me, challenge the Democrats on the record, on their direct record. You know, look at the pattern: Hillary's emails, um, Obama's citizenship, for example. Just totally ludicrous things. Nothing to say, you know, my Democratic opponent is running his campaign based on clean energy, smaller military, less funding for the military, you know, something along those lines that will really, you know, raise the eyebrows of the average American. It's always fear and or misinformation. So here we are. Now, part of that misinformation even could be misleading as far as where to go vote, how many days you have for early voting, um, closing down, you know, certain polling locations that were previously open to kind of like cause a clog in the system, a log jam in the system, and then misinform you as to, for example, there's another polling place, you know, 3 miles down the street, or in a neighborhood across town, or you know, the next block over, to have you running around like a chicken with his head cut off, and really hoping to confuse more than anything, especially if you're a Democratic voter. So beware, you know, be real careful, you know, pay attention to what's going on, because you know, as I said, it's midterm season, and you know, all the guns are out, all the knives are out. It could be anything to do with your ballot at the local level. But they're conspiring, they're planning, and they'll do anything, as we've seen. You know, when it comes to winning an election, it's now like, you know, how low can they go? How low will they go? So you know, here we are. As I said, misinformation and fear. Now, as a great president once said, the only thing we have to fear is fear itself. So let's rock the vote, because that way we could turn it back on the Republicans and let them feel the fear, and let them realize that they can no longer take the American voter for granted, because they're playing us like a fiddle. They're playing us like a fiddle. Um, you know, fentanyl, immigration, people coming to the borders. It's been a problem with every U.S. president. With every U.S. president, whether it's a Republican or a Democrat. We've had trouble coming up with common sense, comprehensive immigration policy. Now, the truth of the matter is, the Republicans would like to stop all immigration from the southern border. You know, we know that, people need to get in line. They need to wait their turn. They need to let the system work how it's designed to work. You know, get in line, file your asylum claim or your reason that, you want to be an American citizen, the urgency of it, and, wait your turn to be called. That, of course, that's how it should work. That's how it should work. But, we're not in a perfect world. So, you know, there's probably been a number of bills from both sides of the aisle that, for example, could have a lot of pork barrel spending, what these politicians like to call pork barrel spending attached to the bill. And that may, blow the bill up. It may be dead on arrival before it can even get to the floor for a vote. Um, we know that with the Republicans ranting and raving about immigration, here a couple weeks ago or sometime back here recently, the Biden administration put out an immigration bill that would have added more border agents for processing, migrants, put more agents on the border to, protect the front line from people crossing so much. Um, it's not sure at Soluble here. We're not sure if there was pork barrel spending attached to this bill or not. But we know that there was a bill put out, and we for the Republicans to rant and rave about immigration, and the president being weak on immigration, weak at the southern border. They didn't care at all to participate in the bill, to sign on, to voice their differences, to make the bill better. Something they could have wanted to add on to make it stronger. Nothing. This is a continuation of the party of no. And so, as I said, now it's time to scare the American voter, to scare the American voter. But one thing we clearly know here at Soluble, and this is the stark contrast between the current president that we have in office now and the previous president that we had in office. The president we have in office now, President Joe Biden, loves this country. His predecessor, the previous president, Donald J. Trump, loves himself. So there you have it. And you have a Republican Party that's backing that. So you have a current president that's in office that loves his country. And you have a previous president that loves himself. So, you figure it out. It shouldn't be hard to do. It shouldn't be hard to do at all. So, that's where we're at. We have 40 something odd days before the midterm elections. So, time is of the essence. Most people have, made up their minds. Most people have probably even, got their ballot in the mail ready to cast it as soon as the timeline begins. But make no mistake about it. That is the difference that we're dealing with. One president loves his country. The previous president, who is still the head of the Republican Party, loves himself. And they support it wholeheartedly. The woke mob under Biden, weak on crime. I mean, you can't have it both ways. As the president has said, you can't be pro-police and pro-insurrection. You can't be both. But that's what the Republicans do. They'll drum up this fear that, oh, crime is America is just, crime ridden now. We're being overrun with crime. And the truth of the matter is, crime is bad. Crime is bad. But we have to come in with a collective effort to solve it. I mean, this is America. What obstacle, what hurdle have we not been able to overcome when we come together as one? The people of this republic are not slow to catch on. They're not low IQ. They're not uneducated. So there's been nothing that we can't put our collective minds to in a think tank type of fashion to find a solution. So, there you have it. And it's really down to the wire now, because there's nothing that this president can do that will cause his supporters to not no longer support, to cause his supporters to drift away from him, more to an independent or more to a more moderate leaning candidate. They're entrenched in Trumpism. So much so that a recent poll has found that what's more important to a Republican voter is not so much the Republican Party, but Trump himself. And, you know, being that this previous president is so unqualified, so wholeheartedly unqualified to govern a nation, to govern this great country, is really alarming. That, you know, this support hasn't waned. And, the president can do no wrong, whether he's causing insurrections, whether he's bribery. I mean, you name it, the list goes on and on. And then, to add insult to injury, to rub salt into the wound, to make it, seem as if this president just has no low. The president will do something that harms America's institutions or threatens America's institutions, or do something very unpresidential that may spark an investigation or may cause officials to have to look into it in a checks and balances type of way to make sure that democracy remains running on a smooth playing field. So the president will do something that causes an investigation or shakes things up, like classified documents, for instance, at his private residence. And then once he gets it stirred up and gets it all ginned up, he'll begin to fundraise off of it. I mean, how low can you go? How low can you go? The president will create a controversy of his own doing, of his own making, knowingly. And so once it happens, and once, his name gets to ringing out there, no matter how bad, he will find a way to fundraise off of it. And so the MAGA rights, they will definitely heed the call. They will open up the coffers, they will open up the checkbook, and they will pull on the purse strings to get this president money. And it's all for nothing, as it would benefit even his campaign or what's best for America. So, that's kind of like the sad reality there. Um, in a lot of ways, the president is creating these controversies or engaging in them or relishing, if you will, relishing in them, because he knows that he'll be able to put out a message, some kind of PR message, and, begin to fundraise. How despicable. How despicable. So, you know, back to misinformation and fear. If we, as the American voter, don't stay alert, and it doesn't matter, Democrat, Independent, Republican, no matter how you vote, facts should matter. The truth should matter. What's best for America should matter. But now, as I said, fear. You know, the migrants are coming. They're flooding the border. As I said, um, the Democrats are soft on crime. They've let the woke mob run wild in America. How out of touch the Republican Party is with these fear tactics. I mean, for one, they're so out of touch because, as I've said before, the summer of 2020 riots, after George Floyd was murdered on the streets of Minneapolis, was the whole melting pot of America. And the Republicans want to keep spinning it and pounding it that this was a woke mob of, pretty much mainly Negroes in America who woke up and just became a mob. But that was not the case at all. This was the whole melting pot. So fear not. Fear not. The facts are there. You can go back into recent history, and you can see the general makeup of the protesters from city to city, from day to day. It was the whole melting pot. And, as I said, for something like this to blatantly be put on camera through a cell phone recording, and it went around the world. And the best that we can get here in America is from the Republicans is not a George Floyd Justice and Policing Act, nothing like that. The best thing we can get is a label. That's the only thing that we got out of this from the right side of the aisle. This horrific murder of a U.S. citizen, all for what may or may not have been a fake $20 bill. But all we can get out of this horrendous act from a police officer who's been sworn to serve and protect was that it's a woke mob. I mean, think about that for a minute. How insulting. How disappointing. Here we were at the crossroads of history, and the Republicans had every chance to make a difference. They had every chance to stand up for the right thing here in America. They didn't blow it. It wasn't an accident. It wasn't, by the skin of our American teeth that this bill didn't pass. Republicans had no intentions of ever passing anything like this. Their intentions were what they did: sit on their hands and run out the clock, and hope that you would forget. Hope that you would not have a long memory that would take you up to the midterms. But here we are. Here we are. Not too much more farther to go before it's time to make a decision about who is going to hold on or who's going to have the levers of power turned over to them in Washington, D.C. So it's decision time. What more can I say? If we rock the vote, as I've said, if we rock the vote, the MAGArites are in the minority. Thank God. But that's only if we come out with the same determination that we came out for to shut the previous president down and not give him a second term. I mean, everybody saw what happened. So, we went out and we shut it down by getting our numbers out. But we still have work to do because it hasn't went away. And as I've said, if we beat them twice, then this is pretty much going to let the Republicans see that they're going to have to run on their record versus their opponent's record. And that misinformation and fear will no longer work because it really makes us, as the American voters, look dumb. It really makes us look dumb. The coronavirus hit, the pandemic hit, and it was politicized. It was politicized. It was controversy. From the right side of the aisle, it all boiled down to the American dollar, people's livelihoods, people being depressed, people wanting to get out or live their lives. And in America, we have that freedom. But as leaders in office, knowing the seriousness of the pandemic, it has so far killed 1 million plus Americans. So that is really serious. A pandemic. That is a serious illness there that kills 1 million plus people in that short amount of time. So, we understand here at Soluble, people want to live their lives. People want to get out. They need to make money. They need to make a living. There was a better, more cooperative way to deal with it. And so, instead of working across the aisles, Democrats and Republicans working together to try to come up with a common sense solution, there you had the Republicans with fear. People are going to lose this. They're going to lose that. We got to keep the bars open. America's not going to be the same if we shut down. Fear, fear, playing on the American psyche. We've had Dr. Fauci in charge of things like pandemics, virus outbreaks, diseases, excuse me, from around the world, um, with his expertise on advising America through sicknesses, diseases like AIDS. He's been there fighting the good fight for America. But all of a sudden now, he doesn't know what he's talking about. He's out of touch, with this particular pandemic. Misinformation and fear. Beware to the American voter. Um, you know, how smart are you? How many times will you go for fried ice cream? And it's going to vary from state to state. Here in the great state of Florida, that's where we're at. Fear. We have the police chief. I think she's a congressman now, Val Demings. She's running to unseat Marco Rubio for the Senate seat that's up for grabs here in Florida, his seat. And there it is, misinformation and fear. She is a part of the gender crisis. Making little boys want to be girls and little girls want to be boys. She is for open borders. She votes with Nancy Pelosi, the vast majority of the time. What politician doesn't? What politician doesn't mainly vote along party lines? But this is all they got. This is all they have, fear. The truth of the matter is, Val Demings has worked her way up from an entry-level street cop on up to chief of police to head of the police in Orlando, Florida. Now, that doesn't sound like someone who's incapable. That doesn't sound like someone who's out of touch with mainstream America. Because to work her way up like that, first of all, she had to have the support of her colleagues. They had to be right there witnessing the hard work that she was doing day in and day out to promote her, to support a promotion. But like I said, once again, that's all they have. That's all they have is to scare the living daylights out of you. As Bill Clinton said here last week, right before this election, that's the Republicans' plan, is to try to find something to scare the living daylights out of it. And it always comes to, once it all comes out in the wash after the election, it's nothing. It's nothing. Remember Hillary's emails. That was the last stunt. That was the latest stunt. And James Comey come out in the 11th hour with what? Fear. Oh, we found more emails. But after the presidential election of 2016, you never heard anything else about it. There was no prosecution of Hillary Clinton. There was nothing there. There was no there. So how many times, can we be fooled as a voting populace? How many times can we be misled or misinformed? So, you're going to have to do your own due diligence. Don't just take our word for it here at Soluble only. Our goal is to try to come on and keep you informed. We engage in politics. We like to debate politics here, as it is essential that now people begin to step forward after this previous administration came forward and took America so low, took American politics so low. We never knew that. We never thought here at Soluble that it would fall so fast by such an unqualified person. We've always thought here at Soluble in the back of our minds that, if America ever went down a rocky road or road towards anti-constitution, anti-democracy. It would probably be somebody college educated, strong military background, in the field of law in some kind of way. No, no. So this is a time to act like no other. This is a time to act like no other. Inform yourself. Take a look at what your options are, and don't be fooled again. Now, as I've said, if we beat them twice, if we come out, bring our numbers out, and beat Republicans twice, then this all goes away. This all goes away. But if we don't rock the vote, if we don't get our numbers out a second time around, we leave that open area there. We leave that sliver of doubt that they've created. It can only be made bigger for them to be able to say, see, I told you so. We won the last time. They just found a way to steal it. But look how we've came back around this time in the midterm, and we watched over everything more carefully. We had poll watchers watching the voting machines, and we won. That's what they want to say. That's what they want to be able to say. So, get ready. Get ready. Get your candidate of your choice. It doesn't matter if it's Republican or Democrat. But to my Democratic colleagues, as I said, we have to keep the MAGA rights in the majority. But it's your decision. And that's the great thing about America. You can make your own informed decision as far as who you want to see in power. And there it is. If the Republicans win in November, we're going to have investigations. If we keep power in Democratic hands, we'll have legislation. You decide. You make up your mind. How hard can it be? You want a government legislating on your behalf? Or do you want a government that's chasing meaningless investigations, wasting taxpayers' time and money on meaningless things that lead to nothing? It's happened in the past, and that's where we're at now. That's where we're at now. Now, this president has been willing to pay it all forward for America. As I said, Joe Biden could have, he's put his time in. He's at an age now where he could, be content to sit on his back porch with a lake view, rocking his grandkids on his knee in a rocking chair. And he deserves that. He's put his time in. But the president felt the need to come out of a semi-retirement. He had to lean back into politics for love of country, not for love of power. Not for love of power, but for love of country. And, the truth be told, he was persuaded by people who were Republican voters and especially Democratic voters. But there was a lot of Republican voters in there hoping, even if they had to whisper to someone else, that he would run again. Or that President Biden would run. Because he was America's last best hope. Let's just be honest. He was America's last best hope at the time, because we didn't have anyone on the Democratic side who could give the former president a run for his money. So we thank God for Joe Biden here on the Democratic side. And, we know that on the side of the right, they don't feel like he's legitimate. They don't feel like, the elections were free and fair. It was stolen. Even though this presentation of a stolen election was put in front of court after court, judge after judge after judge. No credible evidence was ever found. Not one iota, not one shred of voting irregularity. And if it was in such small amounts that it wouldn't have made a difference one way or the other. The result would have still been the same. But yet, the Republicans are still sticking with the big lie. They're still riding the big lie. So, you know, for a party that's putting out misinformation and fear, let let it be said here at Soluble. We're going on the record to say that this is very cowardice. This is very cowardice in people who want to hold office, to lead America, to legislate for America on behalf of Americans. You won't even stand up to an untruthful man who we know is wholly unqualified, who has everything to hide. Why he loves the country. You know, he's a brilliant businessman. You know, he's so smart. He loves the country so. But why do you have so much to hide? Let us see how smart you really are. If you recall, back during the presidential campaign of 2016, if I'm not mistaken, um, you know, the previous president threatened the Wharton Business School, where he actually went to business school, Wharton Business College, or something of that along those lines. He threatened them with a lawsuit if they put out his grades, if they put out a transcript of what his grades were like when he went to school. Why? You're so smart. And so, you know that that has to be misleading and untruthful. Once again, misinformation. We know that has to be so because the president likes to boast and brag about his accomplishments, about his ability, about how smart he is, about how rich he is. He loves to boast these things. But yet, when it comes to the possibility that, excuse me, when it comes to the possibility that the Wharton Business School may put his grades out, the president threatens him. He threatens to stick his lawyers on him, and he's able to hold the line and keep his grades secret. Keep his grades secret. So, you know, it doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure this out. Here you have a president that's boastful. He loves to boast. He loves to brag about his accomplishments and his abilities. Yet, he doesn't want the school he attended to put his grades out. So, you figure it out. You figure it out. But don't be slow to catch on. America has its issues. America has its problems. There is two different opinions on what's best for America. And now it's time for the voters to decide. The only thing we have to fear is fear itself. The only thing we have to fear. So, if you're accessing or have access to sample ballots, make sure you look them over well. You get the ballot, look it over well, study it. There may be something deceitful going on, misinformation. There may be something deceitful going on there to trick you. We don't know what it is or where it may come from, but we know that it will come because this is all that the Republicans have. This is all that they have. If you're running on a record of honesty, fairness, that more shifts towards Democrats and independents. It has shifted away from Republicans. And they have shamelessly, boldly followed the Trump way. They have taken the Trump model and adopted it as one of their own. The president can do no wrong. I mean, so we know as Democrats, we got to, toe the line. We got the crowd to defend democracy when Biden is doing wrong. When Biden is taking America down a path that is not good for Americans as far as jobs, as far as our livelihoods, as far as clean water, clean air. We have to hold them accountable. The same thing with Republicans. As Democratic voters, it doesn't matter who's in office. We're going to have to toe the line. And to my fellow Negro citizens in America, it's now or never for us. This task was passed on to us from great leaders. Great leaders, such as Dr. King, Malcolm X, Frederick Douglass, Shirley Chisholm, John Lewis, just to name a few, who have tried to make America not just better for Negroes in America, but to get all Americans to see on the rightful side of humanity. We're all human beings. To get America to see on the right side of humanity. So those leaders are gone. And when they were here, we see how they were treated in America. Jailed, harassed, threatened, intimidated. But they persevered. And they got it to the point where it's at now. Voting rights, civil rights, fairness in housing, fairness in employment. And so, now if you are voting age or older, it's on us. We cannot afford, as to Negroes in America, we cannot afford to pass this on off to our children. This is the key reason why we need to get out and rock the vote again. Why would we want to pass this off to our children versus, a political fight, political turmoil? Still having to go down this road. It's up to us now to bring it to an end. And a big nail in the coffin of bringing it to an end would be to rock this vote. To get our Democratic numbers out, and especially in the Negro community, so that our children don't have to continue with this political struggle. It's time to get active now. It's time, as I've said before on previous casts, to treat politics as a sport, where the vast majority of Negroes in America are striving for that MVV award, the most valuable voter, or that MCV award, the most consistent voter. We have to participate in it now. This is the sport of intellect. This is the sport of what's best in our daily lives. And, it's time to play it to win now. It's been passed on to us, as I said, from great leaders who've brought us as a people, as citizens. It's brought us a long ways in this country. And now it's time for us, and it's up to us, of voting age and older, to take it across the finish line, to say it's over now. We won't be intimidated. We won't be frightened away from the polls. We won't, stand idly by while our votes are taken away, or, our votes are labeled as illegitimate or illegal. That's where we're at now. So that's why it's crucial that we toe the line and, vote. If for nothing else, for the ones who pass it on to us, it's our turn now. We have the power to end it. This is the chance to end it, to take away all doubt, all fear, all questions. Because if we don't, we can't complain. We can't complain. This cliche of we've come a long way, but we still got a long ways to go. This is it. We have come a long way, but the distance we have to travel now to get across the finish line is from wherever your residence happens to be in America. From there to your nearest polling place. And then it's over. We've come a long way, but we still have a long way to go. It's not that far from your residence to wherever you live in America, your local polling place, your local voting precinct. That's as far as that's where we have left to travel. And if we don't, with due diligence in this midterms, come out and vote, that's what creates that long road. Fear, apathy, a lack of concern for rocking the vote. As I said, you've seen examples now. You've seen several examples of where that old myth of, why should I vote? My vote doesn't count. That's been put to rest because we stopped the most dangerous president in American history. The most dangerous president in American history was stopped after 4 years. And how was he stopped? Even though he tried in vain to say it wasn't so or to delegitimize it. Even though he tried in vain, he had to go because the people spoke. And we are that people. And Negroes, you have to be very aware because you are going to be targeted the most for misinformation and to create fear. Here in the great state of Florida, our governor has created the election police. Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? The election police? What a waste of taxpayer money. What a waste of taxpayer money. But as I said, these are the lows that the Republican Party will go to create fear, to try to keep you away from your local voting precinct. So it's up to us as citizens to say enough is enough. I will not be fearful. I will not be deterred. That's where it's at, ladies and gentlemen. That's where it's at. So, with less than 50 days before the election, you're going to see much misinformation and fear. Much of it. And if you've been paying attention to the president said it, just a couple of weeks ago, right? He was at a fundraising, just like he said, if we lose the majority, he's not going to be able to have time to work on legislation for the American people, to work for you and me. He's going to be spending most of his time using the veto pen. So we've kept the veto pen at bay by having this majority. The president hasn't had to use the veto pen. He's been able to get out and publicize what he stands for, to present it to the American people, and he's been able to work throughout the party along with Congresswoman Pelosi and Senator Schumer. They've been able to work throughout the party, reaching across the aisles, attempting to reach across the aisles to get good common sense legislation passed. That's good for America. That's good for America. So, when it comes to immigration, as I said, what do the Republicans want? Can they just put it out there? Um, when the previous administration was in power, they looked the other way when there was a Muslim ban. The president he didn't want people from shithole countries to hear him say it. Shithole countries. He wanted people from Denmark, from Lithuania, or from wherever his wife may have come from. He wanted the blonde hair, blue-eyed type only. And we are a nation of immigrants. Like it or not, we are a nation of immigrants. Look and buyer beware for misinformation and fear. Scare tactics. That's all they are. That's all they are. They're meant to scare you and to either discourage you from voting altogether, or to make sure that when you go into the voting booth, you're voting Republican because you feel as if they are the only ones that can protect you. The president tried in vain to stop the protests during the summer of 2020. Not that it was something that the American people needed to be protected from, but he created the powder keg. He created the power keg. And the Republicans were able to do nothing about it. They were able to do nothing about it because we, the people, we have the right to peaceably assemble. We have the right to peaceably assemble. When we see that there is a need for a redress of grievances. We have a right to peaceably assemble. So, don't be brainwashed. Don't be hoodwinked, if you will, by the rhetoric coming from the right, coming from the right side of the aisle. After this election, if we come out, if we bring our numbers out, like I know we can we can beat the Republican Party, and we can go a long ways in stopping the campaigns of misinformation and fear, and we will force them to have to run on their record. We will force them to have to run on their record. Excuse me. We will force them to have to run on their record, which the vast majority of the times they're ashamed of, they're afraid of. They don't want it to be known where their votes are at on any particular piece of legislation. But they're going to have to be forced to do that when we come out in the midterms, keep Democrats in power, in the majorities, all throughout government. They will have to be forced to run on their records then. We shut down misinformation and fear in 2020. We didn't go for it. We saw what the beginnings of Making America Great Again really looked like. We began to see what it really was. It wasn't for the existing melting pot. It was to exclude the vast majority of the melting pot and only a select few make it in. And that's not America. That's not America. And that's, you know, solely why it was rejected by the vast majority of us. So here we are. We're going to turn up the heat here at Soluble, going into the midterms, and try to be as informative, as supportive, and, cheerleading, if you will, urging you to get out and rock the vote. Because it really is that simple. It really is that simple. They can't hide it. They can't deny it. They're checking the voting machines now. They're getting all the poll workers ready. They're checking the machine count versus the hand count. So that we're doing all the things here in America, and we salute the poll workers. We salute, the people who come out and work the polls during this time of the year. It's not easy. It's not easy work at all. It takes a lot of concentration. It takes a lot of commitment. So hats off to, poll workers throughout the country, all across America. Democratic supporters, Republican supporters, straight up, honest to goodness people who, during this process of election, they can't lean to the right or to the left. They can't make suggestions. They can't tell you who to vote for. They can only inform you to go back and read over your ballot, or, go back and, read up on the history of the candidate once again. That's free and fair. That's free and fair. I'm not trying to be influential. I'm not trying to persuade you to do this one way or the other. It's your decision. And that's where we're at, folks. That's where we're at. So don't be misled. Every other day you're going to see it on TV, in advertisement. The Republicans have a large war chest when it comes to political advertisement, running commercials across your TV screen, and you're going to see it nonstop because they have a large war chest. But, don't believe the hype. Don't believe the hype. Gas prices are down. The economy is not by no means where we want it to be. But it can only, with Joe Biden at the helm, and with Democrats remaining in the majority in the halls of power, it can only get progressively better. Whether we have Republicans working across the aisle, reaching across the aisle or not, it can only get progressively better. So there you have it. Get informed, read up, study up, So you can't be misled because it's gonna come at you. Trust me, in some shape, form, or fashion. Lies, misinformation, things to fill you with anger or disgust for Democrats. So here we are. Here we are on the precipice, on the brink, if you will, on the brink of continuing a strong and solid democracy, a strong republic, or turning back the hands of time to the dark ages of MAGA. Misinformation and fear. Don't go for neither. Don't go for neither. But, you can be assured that it's in the playbook and it's getting ready to rear its ugly head, now more than ever. And as I said, down here in Florida, we have the election police. Have you heard of have you ever heard of something so ludicrous? Just a waste of the taxpayer money. And we're gonna dig into candidates state by state as much as we can leading up to the election to, dig into the records, fact find, to let you, the American voters, know where things really stand. We'd like to thank you for joining us tonight here at Soluble. As I said, we relish in the fact of, put everything out that we have informative, political. We felt the urge here to it's necessary to step up and play our part because democracy has come to such shambles and come to such a low that you know no one seen coming. You know, when the former president was put in office, you know, we all thought that it would go just like it usually does. We had an election, we slugged it out. We had differences of opinions. We had a campaign, but the election was over. So we thought that the former president would begin to govern a whole nation, but it never happened. So with that being the first time in history that that's happened where we didn't close ranks as one America, you know, it really ought to make us sit up and take notice. So at Soluble, this is why we've came about. This is why we've came into being, to be as informative, as eye-opening, to keep you, aware of what's going on in today's politics, especially in the Negro communities. The time is not now for fear. The time is not now to go for any misinformation. If you feel like the information you're receiving is false, or if it's not wholeheartedly truthful, then you have ways of seeking out the truth. You know, finding out who your local representatives are. You know, Googling certain things. But you have to do your own due diligence to research whenever you think that you're reading up on a candidate, to study up how you're going to vote, and you're not getting accurate information. You have to search it out. You have to It's not going to fall at your feet, especially from the right side of the aisle. You're going to have to search it out because the falsehoods are there, the misinformation is there, and it's there to deceive you. It's there to deceive you. You know, it's midterm season, and this is definitely in the Republican playbook. This is the thing that they'll do to win now in November, to misinform and instill fear. So tune in later on this week. We'll be coming at you with another broadcast. And as I said, we're here now. We're here to stay because democracy's really fell into a state of disarray, to the point where it could be irretrievably broken if we don't act. So this is our way here at Soluble, to try our best to keep you informed. But there's other ways to get involved, and we're urging all American citizens to play their part. So until we speak again, this is Soluble. Um, getting ready to sign off. This has been our segment titled Misinformation and Fear, which is definitely getting ready to happen. So stay informed, stay diligent, and let's get ready to rock the vote in November. Because as I said, democracy is on the line. And the only way to make sure that we prevail as a people, as a democracy, as an American way is to get out and vote. We have to exercise our right to vote now more than ever, because what's at stake is all of our freedoms of speech, of the press, of everything that Republicans despise about the freedoms in this country. They're going to try to take them away. The freedom for a woman to have the right to make her own decisions. It's all at stake now. So tune in later on this week. We'll be putting out another podcast to keep you informed, to keep you aware. So until we meet again, this is Soluble signing off. We'd like to thank you for tuning in. And we ask you to keep joining us for our weekly podcast, anytime from Monday to Friday. Thank you for tuning in. This is Soluble signing off. Good night.